Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. I am your host, Anthony DeGraw with Domain Computer Services. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Jim Ries, Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman. Jim, welcome to the show.
Anthony, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is going to be a great episode. And for anybody who's going to listen to this on audio, obviously, because it's a podcast, I'm going to tell them to highly recommend checking out the video and the YouTube, because Jim has brought his best holiday hat to the party today. So this is great. Thanks for dressing up.
This is my gig.
So today we are going to discuss with Jim. He's going to break down for us the 4 major business development mistakes and how to avoid them. But before we jump into that with Jim, I'd like you to just kind of introduce yourself, kind of a little bit on your background and what you're up to nowadays at Offit Kurman.
Great, thanks, Anthony. My name is Jim Ries. My current position title is Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman. Before I get into that, I'll give you a quick history. About a week after graduating from college, I started working in my family's business. We were wholesalers of women's footwear throughout the United States. Shortly after that, probably sometime in the mid 80s to late 80s, domestic manufacturing of women's footwear pretty much closed down. And it seems like overnight we became importers and distributors of women's footwear. So we were selling women's shoes to all of the corner shoe stores throughout the country, in small towns, large towns. We were selling chain stores. We were selling to department stores. Then the business went to mail order catalog, and then online and the business changed really dramatically at that point. We closed in August of 2009 after 99 years in business. Wow. So I worked there for 31 years and really learned all about business and how to run a business and how to be effective and efficient in business. That takes me to where I am now at Offit Kurman. I've been here for about 8 years. I started in a management role, and shortly thereafter, they came to me and said, hey, your role is not to bring new clients to the firm, but you've been able to do that. So we wonder what it would be like if you did this full time. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. So I became their first and only Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman around 4 years ago. And it's been fantastic. I have nobody reporting to me, and I report to the managing principal. And I think I've done well. I think the firm is very, very pleased with my activity and my productivity. My role is what I call a 3-legged stool. The first is the obvious one, which is I am responsible for attracting new clients to the firm. That's what business development people do. My second role, though, is I'm also very much involved in recruiting new attorneys to the firm. And then my third role is to strike up strategic partnerships with usually with other service providers, CPA firms, bankers, financial services firms, insurance firms, people who are supporting the same market that we support, which is small to mid-size owner-managed businesses. That's really the core of our clientele. They are small to mid-size owner-managed businesses. They are entrepreneurs, and they are families of wealth. We support those businesses with about 230 business advisors that happen to have law degrees in offices, about 12 offices between Charlotte, North Carolina, and New York City. So we are full service. We have about 37 different practice areas. So we are a one-stop shop for legal services for those owner-managed businesses within our geographic footprint.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Jim, for that introduction on yourself and how you got started and how you ended up to where you are today. So Jim has, as you just heard, extensive experience in business development. And I came across Jim from some other networking in the Baltimore, Maryland area. And not only networking, but also the pieces that he's written, so different blog posts and things on business development and the difference between sales, marketing, business development, and really what he's been able to grow there. And I thought one of the best topics for somebody with his experience would be on a piece that he wrote titled "The 4 Major Business Development Mistakes and How to Avoid Them." So Jim, why don't we start with number 1 on this list, increasing your network instead of building meaningful relationships?
So it's certainly very important, and I'm gonna start off with a quote, one of my favorite quotes, and think about this and listen real closely. Networking is about knowing more people. Connecting is about knowing people more. So you're switching the words more and people. That was a quote by John Maxwell that everybody knows about. John Maxwell, leadership extraordinaire coach. So again, networking is about knowing more people, but connecting is about knowing people more. So I think it's really important to go narrow and deep with your network and get and build these relationships with people one-on-one and one by one. And these can be people who are business owners, referral sources, evangelists, call them what you will. These are people who will grow to know and like and trust you and will feel comfortable referring business to you or directly giving you business. That's another thing. To know, like, and trust is really, really important, because you and I might know each other and we might like each other and we'd be happy to have a beer together or go out with our spouses together for dinner. But if I don't trust you, I'm not going to refer business to you, and I'm not going to give business to you if I'm an owner. So the trust is really key. It takes a while to build that. So you've got to build a relationship. So again, go narrow and deep instead of wide and shallow.
What has proven to be successful for you in going deeper with these individuals, right? Like you mentioned, it takes time. Like know, liking, and trusting someone, and especially that trust piece doesn't happen overnight. What have you used or been able to do or educate people on in terms of getting to that deeper level with these individuals?
Well, first of all, you have to be yourself. You've got to be yourself, and you've got to have a plan of multiple touches. So I'm reaching out to people all the time. I'm inviting them to events, or I'm sending them articles, or I'm congratulating them on a new role that they might have with their company, or a new company, or a new win that they've had. So multiple touches would be my short answer. And that's how, it takes so many touches to really cultivate these relationships. So just multiple touches, any chance you can get to drip on, again, a client, a prospect, or a referral source, and an evangelist, that's really key. It's the multiple touches. That's what works for me.
Awesome. So going into number 2 here, we have being afraid to put yourself out there instead of embracing your confidence.
Yeah, so you've got to test your inner strength. You've got to find out what is your comfort zone, and gets back to what I just said. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be yourself. You've got to show that you're human. So if you're an introvert, don't pretend to be an extrovert, and vice versa. So find out where your strength is. Find out where your comfort zone is, and build your process around that so that it is authentic, and that you appear to be exactly what you sound like. You've got to be consistent with that. So you have to be authentic.
What's your opinion on one of my mentors said to me that one of my strengths was always saying yes to opportunity and kind of jumping outside of that comfort zone, but then in knowing that there's potential here, it's going to go there. Wondering what your thoughts are on that. We all have our comfort zones, and we can stay there and live there and be there. But in kind of being your authentic self and going deeper with people, what are your thoughts on saying yes to opportunities or even organizations and roles?
Well, it's interesting because, and we're not here to talk about the pandemic, but one thing that the pandemic has brought to all of us is a sense of authenticity, a sense of empathy, a sense of vulnerability. We've all seen our vulnerabilities during this pandemic, and so there's nothing that's off limits. Check your confidence, but when you're talking to people, it's okay to talk about personal things because we're all dealing with these issues. So I think that's one thing that the pandemic has resulted in improving in all of us is our ability to talk about these things and be comfortable to talk about them. So it allows us to get to know each other on a much more personal level and get to that know, like, and trust piece sooner than maybe in prior years.
I couldn't even agree more. And I'm going to even give an example right now. So as most know, I'm up in New Jersey myself, and I'm working with the Tier 1 Technology Partners team, and we got connected through Pacesetters. At the call right before this interview that I'm doing, was working with a company out of Baltimore. It's a manufacturing company, and we're on our third or fourth call. We've done a couple things with them so far, but I mentioned we're working with their CFO, and each time we've jumped on the call, we've always shared kind of like a quick update about where we are in our personal lives. And coronavirus comes up, politics come up, because that's kind of what we just went through as we're working with this company. And today it was funny. So I have a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, and we're potty training currently my 3-year-old daughter. And as that was happening 10 minutes before I got on the call with this CFO, and I actually thought of that individual while I was doing this with my daughter, because I was like, oh, this is going to be the funny thing that I bring up in my personal life that we talk about on this call with this individual. And it started with a chuckle, but that whole, liking and trusting, it's like I felt comfortable being able to do with that because they've also in return shared what's going on in their lives as we work through this, and we're all in this new world together.
That's great icebreakers, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be the most extroverted person in the world. You start with these conversations about family or home life or whatever it is, something personal, and it just breaks the ice and gets you into a better comfort zone. And then you can talk about business, and you're just in a different place and a better place.
Exactly. So number 3 on your list here was marketing yourself sporadically instead of consistently. And I think this is a huge point, and I'm really interested in your thoughts around it.
Big mistake that people make. Business development is a marathon, not a sprint. I think you mentioned that earlier. And it is so true, especially with what I do, because selling professional services, especially legal services, the industry says it's somewhere around an 18 to 24 month sales cycle. That's a long time. you have to be very patient. So it is a marathon, not a sprint. I tell people several things. Number one, if you're going to get involved on social media, which is a great form of marketing, and by the way, it's free, do it consistently. That's number one. Number two, don't be a lurker. A lurker is someone who just scrolls through LinkedIn or Facebook, looks at pictures, never likes, never comments, never shares. That is a lurker. Don't be a lurker. Most of the people out there are lurkers, but it really doesn't take a lot of time or effort to really get involved in social media. Now, for me, it's LinkedIn because that works for me and that works for what I do. And so I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I started with 2 times a week. And at the same time, like 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'd go through my LinkedIn, I'd comment, I'd like, and then I started posting and doing that on a regular basis. So people start seeing your activity on LinkedIn, and they notice it. Now, you can't just be, if you're sharing or producing organic material and content on LinkedIn, it has to be relevant to who you are and what you do. So I work for a law firm. It wouldn't make sense for me to be posting articles about how to build a patio in your backyard. That my people would say, what the hell is Jim doing? He doesn't know about this stuff. I would never, it wouldn't be right for me to be posting content about managed service provider work. That's what you do. That's not what I do. So I'm posting about networking, about connecting, about marketing. I'm posting about legal stuff, but from a 30,000-foot view, because clearly I'm not an attorney. I don't put myself out there as an attorney imposter. I make it very clear. So I will comment on and I will share blogs that the attorneys write, but I'm clearly not the expert. I'm just sharing and commenting on it from a 30,000-foot view. But to get back to the main point is be consistent. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So grow into it. Find out what's the best social media for you. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? And study the people who are having success. See what they're doing. See how often they're posting. See what kind of content they're posting. I'm really committed to posting every day relevant and meaningful content. I'm committed to commenting on what my network, the kind of stuff that they're posting. I'm committed to sharing it where it's relevant and meaningful. And it does take time, but it's worthwhile and it's free.
Yeah, I was going to circle back on that. There's 2 main points. Number one, it is free, and you can the analytics on it, on the organic reach of you just posting and how far that's going to go organically, aka for free, is dramatic on LinkedIn right now, and people's attention is there. And the second piece I wanted to highlight there as well is that subject matter expert, that SME, right? If I'm a specialized attorney with a specific area of practice, or I'm Jim Ries, business development executive with knowledge in this area, people want to know and understand and learn, and they're using these places to go and do that. And if you are that SME, that subject matter expert, there's not a greater place in the world than to be posting your thoughts, your ideas, and your expertise for people to learn and then attract them into you and for them to get to know you better as well over time.
And people will see your activity on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you will come across them now in a virtual world, and they'll say, "Hey, Anthony, I see the stuff that you're posting. It's really great. I hope you continue that."
Yeah, I will give you another great example of this, Jim, and I can actually state it live now. You mentioned that the average sales cycle, let's call it, in a professional service firm world, which we are, you are, there's many others, is 18 to 24 months. Well, if you do what Jim just mentioned, I'll give you some real stats. On 11/1, I had an organization that had contacted me about 2 years ago, and they weren't the right fit. They were a startup at the time, and they were looking for some advice on how we could potentially help them. Gave them that advice, they went on their way. Consistency in posting on LinkedIn from my own profile and then also through the company's profiles. They stayed engaged and were constantly updating. They were that lurker in the background. Well, on 11/1 of this year, they reached out to us and said, we're ready to go. And on 12/1 of this year, they signed up for full managed IT services with us. So we shortened that sales cycle length to 4 weeks through consistency in what you just mentioned. So everybody out there that's in the professional service world and has the subject matter expertise should go back and re-listen to that exact thing, or join Jim and Java with Jim or these different worlds to learn more about this, because it works. And those are the results we're seeing in not a cheap product, a monthly recurring revenue service-based industry product that is delivering results. And we were able to just recently do that. So cap it off with a live example that I can announce.
That's a great example. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then number 4 on your list, Jim, is selling instead of listening and providing value.
This is one of my greatest pet peeves, because when I open up LinkedIn and I see messages that I get, I connect with people or they connect with me, and then all of a sudden you have this long thread of sell, sell, sell. Why would I ever buy from any of those people? And I know a lot of it is automated messaging, but why would I ever buy from any of those people? I don't care what they're selling or giving it away. I know nothing about them. Yeah. So number one, don't, if you come out of the gates trying to sell, then they're going to run for the hills. That's what I say. So don't come out of the gates trying to sell. You've got to build a relationship. And the best way to start building and cultivating that relationship is to be interested, not interesting. And that is a quote that came from a similar quote from Dale Carnegie, not quite said that way, but again, be interested, not interesting. If you're interested, you're asking questions and you're curious and you're learning about the prospect that you're talking to. If you're interesting, you're doing all the talking and you're selling. So be interested, not interesting, and just, ask good questions, be curious. Everyone loves to answer questions. I think there's like this chemical thing that happens in your brain when people are asking questions, and it makes you feel good. Almost, it's the same chemistry that when you're working out, when you're exercising and you're sweating, you're releasing endorphins and it makes you feel good. So when people are asking questions about themselves, it just makes them feel good. So don't you want your prospects to feel good? Of course you do. So that's a great place to start. And then, provide value. The more questions you ask, you find, I'm selling legal services, but this guy is complaining about, he's got their workforce is working from home. They have all these IT issues. Oh, do you have a good managed service provider that can help you with your IT issues with all your staff working from home? Well, no, we're not real happy with our provider. Okay, I can make some introductions. Would you like that? Yeah, that'd be great. So you're already providing value. You haven't asked for any business. You're not selling. You're just providing value because you're a nice guy and you can prove to them that you're a good resource for them.
Exactly. Jim, any go-to questions, one or two, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you've done this longer than I have. Go-to questions when you're first meeting somebody that you like to go to and use?
Yeah, a couple of things. 2 things that are actually 2 questions that I asked during my Java with Jim interviews with business owners. One question is, what are you most proud of at XYZ company. So, Anthony, what are you most proud of at Domain? And, and then you answer that and you're feeling good, right? And the next question is, Anthony, what do the next 6 months look like at Domain? And that way, with listening to your answer to those two questions, I have a pretty good idea of your successes and your challenges, right? What are you most proud of, and what do the next 6 months look like? So you're probably going to mention some successes and some challenges, and that opens the door for further questions.
I love it. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those, and I'm definitely going to start using those. One of the ones I use to get into the personal side, and of course this was better pre-pandemic, but I always like, do you have any vacations planned? Like, where's your next vacation? And then they go really into like the personal of them and their spouse or what, and their children and where they're going and this and that, and it gives you some insights into what they like outside of work. But really, thank you for sharing those other two questions. Those are great.
Yeah, back in the in-person days, oftentimes you show up at an event, you talk about traffic or weather, but if you can come up with something different than that, it's a nice way to differentiate yourself.
Love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, the 4 major business development mistakes are: number 1, increasing your network instead of building meaningful relationships; number 2, being afraid to put yourself out there instead of embracing your confidence; number 3, marketing yourself sporadically instead of consistently; and number 4, selling instead of listening and providing value. So before we part ways, Jim, I know we're getting very close on time here. We were speaking about business development, but you have some really good pieces, and we will link to them in the show notes on the difference between sales, marketing, and business development. Can you give us 2 minutes on the difference or any analogies that you have in that realm?
Yeah, Anthony, thank you for asking the question, because it is an oftentimes misunderstood, the 3 different roles. And when people hear my role, and they think I do marketing, they think I do sales, and they are very different. But you really have to grind this thing down to figure out the differences. The example I use is, again, back in the pre-COVID days, our firm or your firm would be planning some kind of event to invite clients and prospects to, right? So it would be maybe a wine tasting and hors d'oeuvres or light fare type of event at a really cool venue, and you were going to invite prospects and clients to. So here's how those roles would break down for this event. The marketing group would make all the plans for the event, including the venue. They pick a cool venue, the theme, if there was a theme, the food and beverages. So if it's wine tasting, certain cheeses or breads or what have you, the music, some nice background music, a nice invitation that would probably be sent via email, a registration list, right? That can be shared, with the company afterwards, and things of that nature. That all would be the responsibility of marketing. Then you go to the event. Business development would be responsible for inviting the guest and work the room and make introductions, sort of act like a host, like, hey, this is my party. Hey, Anthony, I want to introduce you to Dave. I want to introduce you to this guy. So make introductions, because what I like to do is I invite my clients and prospects, and I know strategically who really needs to know who, and make those introductions. It makes you look like a king, because you get phone calls the next day thanking you for making introductions. Oh, I have a meeting with him. We're having lunch next week. We think there's some synergies. Thanks so much for making the introduction. So it's not just about having somebody, giving them a free meal and some free booze, but really the value is making those introductions. That's business development role. That's what I do. And then the sales role would be in actually closing any of the deals there. So if you have a prospect who is on the 5-yard line and you need them to get them over the goal line, that's when your salespeople will take it and try to make the close. So different skill sets and different roles in an event like that. I would also say that I consider this, I call it the ABCs. So A is attract. Marketing is responsible for attracting prospects and clients to your business. B is to build. Business development, their responsibility is to build and cultivate relationships with these prospects. And C is to close, and that's the responsibility of sales. So it's the ABCs: attract, build, and close.
Outstanding. I could not have said it better myself. So Jim, final question of the day that I like to ask is there somebody in your neck of the woods, in your backyard, another business leader, and I already know the answer to this is yes, because it's what you do every day, that you respect, has added to your career and your life, that we should get on Discussions by Domain and interview for their areas of expertise?
Oh, geez, you caught me a little bit off guard on that one, but let me give that. I mean, yes, there's a guy who does what I do, but he does it for handpicked clients, and his name is John Dinkle, and he was publisher, editor of the Baltimore Business Journal for many years. So he has a wonderful network of followers. And he is an outsourced business development guy and does fantastic work, has great relationships, very well respected in the community.
That's awesome. We'll make sure to reach out to him. And that's really cool, the outsourced development role. I love that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Ries, Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman. Thank you so much, Jim, for your time.
Anthony, thanks for having me on. I look forward to chatting sometime soon.
Love it. See you, Jim. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.